Let's get to Oregon, Texas Tech. Oregon favored by 2.5 in this one. Over under set at 51.5 on FanDuel. This is a very interesting game, Zach. Oregon coming off the win over James Madison. Some people skeptical of Oregon with how the defense, secondary in particular, played in that second half. However, there was some other stuff too. It wasn't just all the defense, but overall, the defense kind of being the focus. This is Texas Tech's first college football playoff appearance under Joey McGuire, and Oregon, it's their third straight. I think it's their third straight New Year's kind of bowl game type of deal, whatever it is, those kind of bowl games there. So exciting stuff for Oregon. They obviously do not want the same result as last year in the second round. I don't think Texas Tech has the offense to do that to them in this one. I think this is going to be more of a defensive game just by looking at the statistics. Texas Tech leads the FBS in takeaways. They're tied for 6th nationally in sacks, second in 20-plus yard plays overall. The nation's best run defense and allowing 2.3 yards per carry. Oregon, on the other hand, their offense averages 12.5 yards per reception with Dante Moore, number 1 in 20-plus yard plays in 91. That's kind of funny seeing the 20-plus yard plays top two in this one. And then the nation's second best run offense and the best pass defense in the nation. Zach, what are your thoughts as Oregon is getting ready to face Texas Tech?
So this is my hot take. I have the highest margin of victory in this game because I think Texas Tech is a fraud.
Wow. Going after the Big 12 like that.
Well,
we treat the SEC like this. I'm just joking. Go ahead.
Well, and I say that I've watched a lot of Texas Tech today. And the thing that fraud is actually the wrong word. They win in a particular way because they have to, which is very similar to what Ohio State has done to people, which is to suffocate the life out of you. The problem is they don't have a Jeremiah Smith or a Carnell Tate or a Julian Sayin. And in fact, their offense stinks. But if they can get on top of you and keep you from scoring, then it doesn't matter. They've played one good quarterback and one really, really good receiver. And that was Sam Leavitt and Tyson, the wide receiver. And in that game, Arizona State won. Yes, Texas Tech was playing a backup quarterback, but that backup was not bad. Like I was going into it thinking, the backup quarterback stunk. He did not stink. Arizona State had nearly 400 yards. And the thing that killed them was downfield passing, mobility at the quarterback position, and being able to stay on schedule. What can Oregon do? Well, do you have a good quarterback? Yeah, you have a guy who is arguably one of the top 2 in the country in Dante Moore. Is he mobile? Yes. Does he have downfield passing threats? Yes. Abundance. And guess what? I don't think Texas Tech can score on this defense. I think JMU is actually better equipped to score on Oregon than Texas Tech is. And I'm not trying to be disrespectful to them, but I just don't think this is a good matchup for Texas Tech, especially with Oregon having Sadiq healthy, having DeCorian Moore healthy, getting Gary Bryant back healthy. And we don't know about the status of Evan Stewart. And then you mix that with their running game. I think Oregon's going to get on top of them early. And I think they're going to take Texas Tech completely out of their game plan.
This is interesting because you are with Texas Tech similar to how I am with Alabama. And then I am kind of like with Texas Tech the way you are with Alabama. Did I say that right? But basically kind of the inverse there. I think this might be the closest game in the college football playoff second round because I do think that some of the things that Oregon is really good at, Texas Tech is also good at. And I think some of the things that Oregon is bad at, Texas Tech is also bad at. And so I think it's going to be kind of one of those things where it's like who can do their strength better and then who can overcome their weaknesses better. Oregon's run game, we know it's elite, right? I mean, we've talked about it all season long. I'm very curious to see how they're going to be able to scheme away from Jacob Rodriguez, because Jacob Rodriguez, I mean, I watched some Texas Tech games like you did as well. He jumps off the screen every single
He's
time
very good.
in run
He's
defense.
very
He
good.
always knows his fit. He is excellent. He is one of the best, if not the best. I mean, he won the Bendrick Award, so he can definitely be claimed to be the best linebacker in the nation. And I do think that some of the teams that Oregon has faced with their run game have had linebackers who struggle a little bit more. And that's one of the reasons why. I'm not saying anything against Oregon. Oregon has a fantastic run game. It's second best in the nation. But I do think sometimes they benefit from not as good of linebackers. Iowa doesn't have as good of linebackers this season as they've had in the past. USC had bad linebacker play this season because their coach wasn't doing a great job with them. So I'm really interested to see what does this Oregon running game look like against excellent linebackers. Ben Roberts, he's excellent too. He's not Jacob Rodriguez, don't get me wrong, but he's excellent too. And so I am curious to see the run game of Oregon, but I think it's the passing game of Oregon that is going to elevate them. Even if the run game of Oregon is not, super exceptional like we've seen, it just has to be good. That's all it really has to be. So that way the passing game can work, because Texas Tech has not seen a Dante Moore this season. No. Texas Tech has not seen somebody as efficient as him. He is, all the credit to Dante Moore since that Indiana game. He has just completely skyrocketed his game, his efficiency, his ability on third down. He's done a phenomenal job. And then the other, I'll let you speak to the run game and the Texas Tech defensive run defense before I move on to the next one.
No, so nothing you're saying I disagree with. And I think that's the hard thing when calling Texas Tech a fraud. They're not a fraud. But I think if I look at Oregon and their ability to attack downfield, they face nobody that can do that to them. Like Arizona State's the closest to that. But and in that game, Tyson actually pulled his hamstring a little bit. Like he was not 100% healthy. And he was still getting, they had 3 receivers get at least 25-yard receptions in that game. I'm like, man, I totally agree with you. Like Jacob Rodriguez, he deserved every bit of the Bednarik. Phenomenal player. But I just don't. This is why I think it's a bad matchup. Is I think Oregon can do things to them that nobody else on their schedule has been able to. And up to this point, even against Arizona State, they had to play from behind, but they never got into a hole. If Oregon puts them in a hole, it's over.
Do you think with the connections, because a lot of people are talking about how Corey Heatherman, used to be at Indiana, he's going to help Ryan Haynes and all this stuff and everything. Like he used to be with, he used to be at Indiana. He used to be with Stignetti. So he's going to help them. Kenny Dillingham used to be with Dan Lanning. Do you think he?
Oh, I'm sure Dan Lanning is giving him a call.
Yeah, I would too.
Yeah.
I'd be like, hey, help us out. What were you doing over here? I do think it's going to be really interesting because Texas Tech does a really good job of getting to the red zone. Their problem is they do not do a great job of converting in the red zone. Like I said, they are second in the nation in 20-plus yard plays overall on offense. It's not just running game. It's not just passing game. They're second in the nation in that. They know how to move the ball down the field, especially in chunks. Maybe they're not always the chunk that's going to get them into the end zone on a 60-plus yard play, but in chunks enough to be able to get them down to the red zone. The issue is they're 96th in the nation in touchdown rate. But then the issue for Oregon is they're 120th in the nation and allowing touchdowns and touchdown rate allowed. And so you have this dichotomy here of what's going to happen. Is Oregon going to keep Texas Tech out of the red zone, or are we going to have a red zone battle in this game where it's a team that's not great at scoring touchdowns in the red zone and another team that's not been great this season at stopping teams from scoring touchdowns in the red zone? I think it's going to be, if Texas Tech wins this game, I'm not going to pick them to do so, but if they win this game, that is going to have to be what they do. They're going to have to continually get to the red zone and convert those red zone attempts into touchdowns, because I believe they have the second most. Yeah, they have the second most red zone attempts this season. of any team, and they haven't even played a game that some of these first round playoff teams have played.
But do you trust their personnel to be able to march the field on this Oregon defense? And that's where.
Well, that's my next point, but go ahead.
Yeah. Well, it's just like, so Baron Morton, he's fine, right? 22 touchdowns, 4 picks, 2,600 yards. Will Hammond is back up 687 and 3. They have a good back in Dickey. Williams is his backup. He's got close to 800 yards. So, I mean, they've got a good running back tandem. My evaluation of their offense is they're fine. And you've got to go up against an explosive defense with really good players at every level. And I know I keep saying this, that's my big concern. Like, Morton's not particularly mobile, 37 carries for negative 81 yards, AKA like he's not a dual threat guy. And then you're talking about putting him up against guys like Tuioti and Uyunglele, and you've got why can't I think of the safety that's back there?
Dylan
Thieneman. You've got Brandon Finney, who's played great ball for them as a freshman at corner. Like, I just look at each level of their defense athletically, and I'm like, I just don't see that offense being able to move the ball regularly.
Yeah, I hear you, and I think one of the reasons why I don't think they're going to be able to move the ball regularly is not necessarily. Well, I shouldn't say that. I just think Oregon's going to be really disruptive with breaking up passes, and I think that Oregon's going to get at least 2 picks in this game.
Yeah.
Baron Morton only has 4 interceptions on the season, like you pointed out, and that's very good. Don't get me wrong, but he's kind of like Ty Simpson, where he has 13 turnover-worthy plays this season as well. So you've got kind of a dichotomy here where, yeah, he doesn't have all that many interceptions. And I would argue that, and this is no disrespect to the Big 12. I actually think the Big 12 is a better league than a lot of people give credit for, but I just don't think anybody in the Big 12 is on the level of Oregon's pass defense. And I think Oregon's pass defense, as much as we want to talk about Dante Moore and all this stuff, I think Texas Tech hasn't seen a pass defense like Oregon yet, and I could see Baron Morton throwing at least 2 interceptions in this game, and that really hinders them. And if not even 2 interceptions, I think they could fumble the ball in this one as well. Texas Tech's running back, Cameron Dickey, or one of their running backs, I should say, he has 3 fumbles on the season. Oregon's running back room, you're talking Jordan Davison, Vier Hill, Noah Whittington, that stable of backs they have there, they have 1 fumble on the season. And Texas Tech is gonna have to get some turnovers in this game, because I don't trust their offense enough to not turn the ball over.
Well, and to that point, in that Arizona State game, I mean, and against Utah too, they were punching. I mean, they coached their linebackers to punch the ball out. So, I mean, they are ball hawks, and I think that is, if this game is closer, if Texas Tech wins, it's because they are plus in the turnover margin. And they're looking for turnovers. But again, that's always a concern to me when it's like, how are you going to win the game? Well, we got to win the turnover battle. Okay, you've got to be really good to make sure you're always winning that battle, because often turnovers can also just be like, it can be a crapshoot. And so if that's your pathway to victory is solely, we need to win the turnover battle, I don't love that for Texas Tech. Going back to your schedule analysis, this is the thing that has struck me a lot, just even looking at Texas Tech. If you look at Sagarin, Texas Tech and Oregon and Sagarin are 4 and 5 in the Sagarin ratings, but they are about 2.5 points different. If you're comparing them, that's a bigger gap than Notre Dame to Oregon. It's a bigger gap than Indiana to Oregon. It's a bigger gap than Ohio State to Indiana. Ohio State's still number 1 despite the loss to Indiana. It's around the same gap as Georgia to Alabama. and Georgia beat Alabama by 21. You go a little bit further. If you look at who Texas Tech has played, their best win is number 14 Utah, which they did beat Utah, but again, not a great passing attack, which is my big concern for them. And then they beat BYU twice. Those are their 3 top 30 wins in Sagarin. Their loss was a team outside of the top 40 in Sagarin. And so you compare that to Oregon, they have only had one top 10 team. By the way, BYU's number 22 in Sagarin, below Michigan. So just to give context, Oregon, meanwhile, their loss was by 10 to Indiana, who is the number 1 team in the country. And then they have wins over Penn State, who's 13th. They have a win over Washington at Washington. They're 15th. They have a win at Iowa, 17th. A win against Southern California, USC, 18th. And then they have a win over James Madison, and they're 28th. JMU would be the 4th best team on Texas Tech's schedule. Like that, we're talking levels of difference here in who they've played and who they've consistently played.
Yeah, and I do think the schedule talk is important. I try not to get into it too much just because I do think it can be deceiving, but I definitely think when you talk about the schedule and you look at teams like BYU and Utah being the best teams that they faced, Devin Dampierre and I'm forgetting the BYU quarterback's name, but he's a true freshman. They are nowhere near Dante Moore, right? And I do think there is some thought process about Oregon and some of the defensive lines that they face, because I heard that point today. I think it was Cover 3 that pointed that out today. Penn State and their defensive line gave them a hard time. Iowa and their defensive line gave them a hard time. So I understand that. And that's kind of what gives me the concern of the defensive line for Texas Tech, which I think is top 5 in the country, and the linebackers of them. I think that gives it, but the counter to that is the passing game that I don't think Texas Tech is going to be able to completely shut down. Is Oregon going to be willing to not be as run first of a team if it doesn't work out and go more toward the passing game? I think they'll do whatever they have to do to win, obviously. But I do think it's going to be an interesting matchup to see how it all goes. So, yeah. Any other thoughts on that game before we do our predictions, Zach?
No, I'm ready to go.
All right. Well, you go first. I've done the last few predictions.
I've got 31-17 Oregon. I think it'll be 31-10, and Texas Tech gets a junk score at the end.
I have this one a little bit closer. I have Oregon 27-20. I really respect this Texas Tech front seven. I think it is going to give Oregon some hard times, but overall, I think Oregon comes out with the win in this one. And who knows? I could be completely wrong. We'll see. Texas Tech might have some more turnovers and stuff like that.